Could you talk about people who leave a spiritual path and then return to it?
That's a good question. You know, who really leaves it? Who returns? Can you leave it? Can you return to it? Depends upon what we mean by the path. Comment?
Well,
We talk about conventional religions. That sometimes happens.
I mean, that's a more obvious case, but then there are people who are on a less clear path, but let's say maybe they know they're on a path even though they can't define it.
Know the path without defining it? Is that where
Just
you
know.
are? Do you know the path and you can't define it?
I could maybe talk about it, you know. But there were times in my life where I felt spiritual need and looking for something, but really didn't have words for it.
I think this is part of the journey. See, where you feel not quite, I mean, you're okay, but you know there's more, right? That a certain kind of completion is looming somewhere, see? Maybe up ahead just a bit. See? And so it like pulls you, like you're being pulled, you're being led, so to speak. You feel this, not quite disquiet about it. You know, it's quiet. You're okay with it, but you know you're being led. You're in the stream of something. That's part of the path. See? Part of the path is also having this confidence that you're being led properly. See? And then there are more warrior-natured people, warrior-like people who say, no, I want to go to the darkest places and the brightest places to know what it is. Because they feel that they're being led, so they don't have any fear about it. They're not going into the darkness to be the darkness, they're going into the darkness to know what it is. And same with the higher worlds. People go into the worlds of light to know what that is. Not to necessarily be there, although many people would rather just park there and spend the rest of their eternity there. So all of these are phases of the path. Nightmares are part of this process. Yeah. Positive dreams are part of this process. And we reach a point where then what is called practitioner here means one who's putting it all together. Or it's coming together for them. The questions are disappearing. They're seeing more answers in everything rather than questions. Seeing more solution. You understand?
So, I mean, sometimes I've known people who, let's say, oscillated between intense spiritual practice and then intense hedonism, which seems to be like the warrior types you're referring to. But they didn't necessarily know what they were doing or put it in terms of as clearly as you did. So is that just a need people feel but maybe can't, verbalize?
Well, there are very powerful urges that govern what appear to be choices and decisions, right? And life direction changes. Yeah. These are very powerful forces. We can say they're unconscious forces. And you can sense them, you don't have to describe them, but they're powerful forces. Currents, some would say they're currents, flows. Right. And often many say they are in the midst of those forces, but they're confused as to which forces to flow with, because they have all kinds of options. They have many directions they can go in. They feel. And this is part of the path as well. Being in whirlpools and these like rinse cycles. You're just spinning around and you're being tossed about. You know you're being cleansed, but it's still a rough ride. You're being thrown around by the karmas around you. The karmas you were born into in some cases. Or the karmas you're stepping into in some cases. All of these are valid. The issue is, where's one going? Is it spinning around to spin around? Is it spinning around to spin through the spin? See, get to the other side? Is that what it is? Or spinning to go down into the abyss? So all of this has to do with the individual's inner directives, often, if you have one. Sometimes you have to go with the flow and then see what's left when you can wake up and sort things out for yourself. See? That could be in someone else's world. It usually is with partners. See? They partner so that they can be in someone else's world well enough to know better. That's your world. I need my own world. So-called own world. I mean, one that is more naturally harmonious for the individual, without conflict. See? One which, because of its very nature, enables you to move forward and do things that when you're configured with a partner, by obligation or whatever, choice, you can't move forward. See? It's not that easy. There's other, so you're compromised. So we all have to work with our, let's say, compromises. If we're talking about, well, we should be doing this and doing that, well, which is it going to be? If you're saying you should be doing this and it's going in this direction, whereas your karma is a compromise of the ability going in that direction, and you have some intense decisions to make. If you can make those decisions, right? Because sometimes it's a change of direction. It's a change of program. So that could also mean a change of mind, a change of heart, or a change of life. Yeah. So this is what is upon everyone, every breath of the way. Are you going the right way? Are you okay with where you are? Or do you need to change it? Should you change now rather than regret not having changed when you had the chance to do it? Are you that ahead of it where you can make those decisions and see the results, see, before you are the effect of the worst part of certain results, which is then your lesson. See? And that will throw you back on your memory, the causal plane, so that you can review in a few moments what you should have done in order to avoid this, that, whatever. See? Because we are causal bodies. We can see ourselves on the time track, past and future, if you have the intelligence or the courage to face it, where you know better. And this is really that kind of process. Experiencing things to be continually improving upon it rather than ignoring what you see and what you know and just slipping back because, it's better to be compromised with someone else or by someone else or for someone else. Better to be compromised. And many times people ask me, well, isn't that a form of sacrifice? Yeah, you're sacrificing your better judgment in some cases. If you have no better judgment, then what is there to sacrifice? You just do what you got to do until clarity arises in some form or other, or at some time or other. See? And we have to give that up to get clarity. When it shows up, you're going to know it. There's going to be no mistaking it. You don't need words for it. Say, you just know, you see it. See? And now you have to act on it. Yeah. You have the crucial moment when you have to act to save your own life, if not someone else's. But who knows that much in those moments? That only when you make a big mistake, you reflect back upon it. You go back in time, you say, wow, that's when I wasn't paying attention.
There's a lot of cases where people seem to be at odds with themselves in terms of polarities, where the more they want to go left, the more they seem driven to the right or something like that. The more they want to be spiritual, the more they indulge in hedonism and back and forth.
No, it's just life. It's not hedonism and non-hedonism. It's just whatever your experiences are. Yeah. You don't have to put certain labels on. This is bad and this is good. No, it's all the same thing. It's beyond good and bad. It's your experience. Yeah. Thinking about it makes it good or bad, but it's just what you got to deal with. Whether that's a storm, whether that's any event, that you're a part of. See, that's a crisis, or even let's say a vacation. paradise.
So is there a way to move from opposite behaviors towards a center where there's more balance?
Well, there is that place where there is no opposite behaviors. There is that place. So you might, if you're asking for a choice, you might want to opt to be in either place, which doesn't mean in any way, shape, or form stagnation or inaction. It means going beyond that, moving through it. Hello, moving through. Not being stuck with either option, just move through it. Stay clear.
And so is spiritual progress equal to good karma?
It's all good karma, even the worst karma. You have to chew on that. Your worst karma is the best karma you ever had. You need to know that. That's what it's for. So you can wake up to what's happening. Right? Say, no, not me. No, never me. This can't be happening to me. Who created it if it's not you? Why is it happening to you? If you didn't set it up. Who put you there? You drop out of a spaceship? Just given an opportunity to be there for a moment? No. Your whole life led to where you are in the moment. You're here now. This is where you are. Not even about who placed you here. You're here. Now what? Everything is next.
And so is there, let's say, an awakening as one gets into the worst conditions, at least a potential awakening?
Yeah, you hope so. You hope the so-called conditions of the worst order are intensifying your awareness, making you more awake, more clear about the danger of your situation and how fragile it may be, right? And how fleeting the whole thing is. Your life is under certain conditions, right? The wrong move, slightly this way, that way, will kill you, or someone else. That fragile. And we are in that world now. Now we have to be careful of what we say, think, and do with others. To see where it's taking us. And how are we going to show up, where, when, and for what.
So if life is extremely fragile and going to end anyway...
Not because it's going to end anyway, because you have it now. It is now. It's the reality now. It's not a terminal... So we know it's going to end at some point, but who cares? Right now you want to make the most of what your life is rather than be worried. That is, diminish the quality of your life by worrying about, well, when that moment is going to come. Yeah, it's going to come. No question about it. But do what you have to do in the meantime so that your business here is finished. And you're not sort of stuck in the middle of doing something that you know that you intended to finish and should have finished before then. And now you never have an opportunity to do it or finish it in the same way. You get your business finished first. Right? And then start to open to what could be your final moment, and with all due respect to it. And make it an easy passage for yourself and for your people.
So in light of that, how much importance should be placed on safety and security?
Very important. Just because it's wise and appropriate. There's no question about that. Yeah, it's not an issue. Everyone is being as safe as they can be. They could be safer, yeah, but always safety first.
And yet for some, sometimes there's the need to go to extreme conditions to do what they have to do, which aren't safe.
For some, that's how they get to the safe. Yeah. Right. Under the worst conditions, people become safer. As a result of the worst conditions, people become safer. Yeah, that's the way it works. One extreme to the other.
So if one is, how do you know? How do you know what you need to do? Or
you need to know. You need to know for you. That's how you know. By needing to know.
can you learn by the example of others?
Not as well. No, you need to know. Sometimes you find it in the example of others and in their mistakes. But you can also find that in yourself, in your own mistakes, more directly. Right? Your own flubs, right? Your own slips, right? Your own stupidity. Sometimes it takes that. And then you have a moment of brilliance. So your stupidity, and recognizing it as such, is a profound clarity for you.
So is, let's say, a fatal mistake always a mistake, or is it sometimes,
You tell me. It's your question.
I don't know what I have to go through to give it the right answer, so. I mean, there've been conditions where, let's say, I've gone the wrong way or done things that seemingly at odds with, you know, what I wanted in life, but ultimately they came around and proved to be of benefit, so.
Well, everything is for the better. There's no question about that. That's one way of looking at it. Yeah. Ultimately, it's for the better, right? Because you can't change what it is. You have to adapt to it. So we're talking about then adaptation, see? Without choice, right? You have to adapt.
So if everything is for the better, are we always in the best possible moment?
You're always in the best possible moment. Whether you know it or not, you have to come to terms with that. It's the only moment you have. Are you in the best now? Are you in the worst now? Or it's just now. Yeah, you're here. Right. You have to deal with that.
And if we're dealing with that, is it always within the context of a spiritual path once you've entered one?
Depends on what you mean by the spiritual path and what you mean by entering one. Can you enter the spiritual path? Yeah.
You can have at least the appearance.
Can you drop out of the spiritual path?
Well, that's part of my question. Can you drop out of spiritual path?
Well, in your mind you can feel that. Yeah. Yeah. It's a state of mind. In the path, out of the path. These are states of mind. Are they the path? No. But they're states of mind concerning the path.
So I'm getting from that all life is always a spiritual progression regardless of conditions.
That's just easier said than done. Yeah. But it doesn't mean it's any better for someone else because someone else sees it as spiritual. See, some person will see all life experience as something you need to enjoy and put behind you. Others will say, no, this life isn't worth living for 1 second. Depends on who you speak to and what their level of unfoldment is. And you might meet a master along the way, and you know, at a corner of an intersection, and you know you're at your worst moment, and all of a sudden, you know, you turn to the person, whoever it is, and you say, "Well, what is it for?" And it's for everything. It's for everybody. It's a plus. It's not a minus. It's a plus. Even your depression is a plus. It's not a minus. Only thinking so. You move on from there. Because once you're gone, there's nowhere to move from. So as long as you're here, you can move on from wherever it is to something. Let's say more. Not positive or negative, but something more. There's always more. It's a plus element. It's very important. There's always more. The real picture is huge. So it's incomprehensible. So that's the reality. See? And whether you call that the spiritual path or the cosmic path, it's up to you. It depends on your perspective and you know what works for you in your particular body-mind configuration relative to the time-space world you inherited or created for yourself. Very simple.
Is there an inner master that guides us through these conditions?
You can say that. That really depends on your experience of what that is. We can't just say to like a lot of people say, well, Jesus is with you, and you're going through hell, and Jesus is with you. Well, it's an attitude, you know, Jesus is with you at all times. So if that helps you, then that helps you. If you feel that is your inner master, who can take that from you? Yeah. Because then it's what the person feels. And maybe it's better that they feel they're guided all the time, because when you look at it from a spiritualist viewpoint, you're always being guided. And from both sides.
Can you be on a path that is not your own path?
You're always on the path that is not your own. You haven't, and you maybe can never be on your own path. How is that for a bold, whatever you want to call it, nonsense? A bold no sense. Yeah, right.
If it's not your own path, whose path is it?
It's the path's path. Well, a path can't have a path. Only you can have a path. Is that fair and just? Is that wise? Or is that even true? It's your path? What is it if it's yours? It's less than what it is. If it's yours, it's infinitely less than what it is.
Is this what the Taoists refer to as the way?
You seem to know more about it than I do. You keep mentioning the Tao. Yeah, enlighten us on it. I'm here. I receive it. Yeah, what do I know? Go ahead.
So how do we cultivate our inner master?
Well, we have to define what that could be first, before even what it might be. See? If you're relating it in certain spiritual terms, then you need to know what kind of spiritual you're talking about. By what school? Spiritual. By what class? By what norm spiritual? So you have to break it down and shake it down to its finest essence. But we are just spirit first. Spirit first then. Everything else is beside the point. Spirit first. Spirit first and last. Spirit first and last and beyond. First and last. Your spirit. Pure. Zero. No human nature, just spiritual nature. Okay? That's a pretty tall order for peeps. See? Especially beginners on the path, they find that hard to conceive of.
Does spirit reside within traditions?
Spirit? You mean it doesn't reside outside of traditions? What kind of spirit are you talking about? Whose spirit is it? Right? Is it your spirit, like your path? Well, if it's yours, please tell me about it. If it's all about you. See? No, it's not anybody's. Yeah. And that's what the spirit is. It's universal and personal. Reality. It's not about persons. Persons aren't even persons. It's thinking makes that so. And that means they're beneath their considerations already. The consideration of being more, they're beneath that because of this. As distinct from that. You reduce yourself to that world of duality. And that's always less than what it is. Less than what it really is, and less than what it needs to be for every and anyone. Yeah. It's always much less. So unless that whole viewpoint process of this is what I am here as a thing becomes upgraded to, how about being a no thing? There's more room in that. Nothing standing in the way. It's a radical idea, but it's very common in spiritual circles. Okay? That's spirit. Spiritual, nothing circles. The no thing circles. The non-material circles, you got to hear that. So many people using the word spiritual, and they're really meaning something material. And spiritual is purely what it is. And Jesus made a case for that. It's in the heavens, above the heavens, my Father. Gone. Not around here. Not in this neighborhood. Not in your house.
So the tradition's repository for spiritual knowledge, or spiritual knowledge free of all that?
What has your experience been? Oh, great researcher of the works of the spiritual worlds.
I think they can be a repository, but that's not a guarantee of it translating as wisdom for any particular person.
Mm-hmm. It's not about what you read. It's not about the teachings, although the teachings can confirm what you've experienced. As, let's say, precise record of events and things happening to certain people, especially in the manner of the spiritual progression. Going through the layers of darkness into the layers of light. Yeah, that's for real. It's a theory when we talk about it theoretically. Yeah, but there's the reality of the light. We are the light. But how deep do we need to go into our own true nature to know what that is? Yeah. In terms of spiritual light. Yeah. It's just something you just declare in the book. We can say there's a spiritual light. Well, whose? Okay. What people's spiritual light? Just for one people? One people may be believing it is true for them, but what's true for one is true for all. Okay.
Is the desire to be spiritual a material desire?
Could be. Right. It could be the denial of the spiritual. I want to be this kind of spiritual, which is better. Say, more green. I want the green spiritual. I want the gluten-free spiritual. My spiritual is gluten-free. Okay. Yeah. So that's self-created stuff. My religion, my God, and all of this, as if whatever it is could be reduced to anything. There is nothing to reduce it to. We need to know that. It's not reducible. And it's not offendable. I think that's the most shocking thing people could ever hear. Is that what it is can't be offended by anything, definitely anything happening in this universe. Right? Right? The creator of all universe is going to like this one more than better ones. Right? Infinitely more radiant ones than this dark dungeon of a garbage can we're calling this one, the material one, or this particle of the material universe. So we need to get it beyond our finite perceptions of what we think it should be, and be open to what it might actually really be beyond ourselves. So it's not yours or mine. It's its own universe, its own reality. Not that it makes it any easier or more true, but it's more like, well, whatever it does, whatever it is, because it is reality. Reality is real. And what we have to offer it is very, very questionably real. It's nothing in comparison. We fall back to the nothing as being the everything. In the spiritual sense, it's nothing. And it stays that way. Because it doesn't care. We care, because we don't know.
Does stilling one's mind and thoughts allow the spiritual to come through more clearly?
It may. You may be able to, in calmness and silence, as many of the contemplatives have indicated, and mystics have said, just stop, look and listen. Be still and know I am God. You hear those words. Be still and know the I am is God. I am that I am. And, not that that's the end of any understanding. That may be the beginning of a basic inquiry into who is who and what is what. See, and which is which.
And so is that a more neutral approach to existence, to be still?
Well, you can be still. But you can sit and bring your body to a calmness, and sleep does it. Sleep is like coerced stillness. Your body's at rest. The self is gone, and the body's resting to a certain degree, for a period of time. So stillness is a state of mind. Excellent. It is so. You can be still right here. No. You can be still in a busy subway car. Busy, packed. Oh no, stillness. Stillness is presence of mind. That's a spiritual practice, so to speak. Having no mind. Presence of mind, so you're more in tune with what's going on around you. Comment.
Is the mind then the problem in spiritual
Well,
practice?
not understanding the mind is a problem. If there's a problem, it's not understanding your potential and your capability. So your truth, your reality. So the problem is you're suffering because you're not paying attention to what's really going on at a level where it can revolutionize your whole approach to life. You can recover common sense that is, I would call radical common sense. You start to know you know, and you live from that point. Nothing's a mystery anymore. Or what is a mystery is that other people don't know. And they refuse to know. That's a mystery. And then no mystery.
Is acceptance of conditions a more spiritual view than rejection of them?
Doesn't matter who rejects or accepts. What we're talking about doesn't care about that. I think it's more important to know that it doesn't care about your suffering. See? Yet the masters that are out here care about your suffering because they know you don't have to suffer. See? They know that it's completely unnecessary and you're just hanging yourself as a result of bad information, wrong information, or meditating on past karma that is not clearing your path. And that the universe is really, from the spiritual viewpoint, one of progression and refinement, purification. Because you're going back to spirit. You're on your way back to spirit every night, and then finally, ultimately, giving this carcass up. Okay? Or maybe a new and improved version in the next dimension of your deserving, not necessarily your choosing. Some choose, but most just deserve what they get.
Is there a positive aspect to suffering?
Of course there is. You're here. You're experiencing it. That's the positive aspect. You're learning from it. Maybe you learn that you don't need to suffer. Maybe you learn that you created the suffering, and that's very powerful. That you created the suffering, or that, like the Buddha realized, that life is suffering. For the most part. Until you awaken to what it really is. Life appears to be suffering. So life is suffering in the beginning. Kindergarten. Life is suffering. Until you make it more than that. Until you realize it to be more than that. Okay? And that you see that suffering then is the result of your ignorance. And your undoing in a negative sense. That's very logical, and that's why a spiritual path, in certain terms, is very scientific. Right? It's sort of ultra-scientific. Stop doing it to yourself. I mean, how simple can it be? Stop doing it to yourself. Are you doing it to yourself all the time? Is that all you can do, is it to yourself? Right.
So then are we here to suffer in order to learn to not suffer?
It would seem that for those who are progressing, that's what you learn. You're suffering to not suffer. You're suffering to give up suffering. In other words, you're suffering into no suffering. So that what your purpose is here is to serve happily other beings and enjoy their enjoyment, despite the suffering around everyone and inside everyone. State of consciousness. It's really now a matter of state of consciousness. And then no state of consciousness. Okay, no state of consciousness.